Hello there, Felix back again, back from a long week of doing lots of, so many jobs. I still have a bit of a lingering cold since I've been down on the bottom floor dealing with some incidents, that's to say. The damp really gets into my bones. Also, I hope you've enjoyed the last week's content with lots of stories from my lovely friend Edward, who works in the floor above, and Imogen, who works in the floor below. Also, it said that Edward's voice sounds like a robot, so I'll let him know that. I'm sure he'll find that quite amusing. Anyway, today, let's get on with the story. Picture this. A hospital corridor after midnight, dim and hollow, its fluorescent lights buzzing, faintly like dying insects. The walls are smeared with shadows that stretch and shift, and the air carries a weight that feels unnatural, pressing down on the quiet like an unseen hand. At the far end, near the nurse's station, stands a boy, no more than 8 or 9, his small fists clutching a wad of smudged sketches. His eyes are fixed on the figure that no one else notices. It wears the uniform of a nurse, white, immaculate, sterile, but its form is wrong. Its edges ripple faintly as if submerged underwater, and its movements are too fluid, too precise. It stands apart from the normal ebb and flow of life at the ward, an alien rhythm hidden in plain sight. Young Thomas knows it shouldn't be there, knows that its primal way, knows in a primal way that only children seem to trust. But he also knows something far worse. It doesn't know he can see it. He watches it as it glides between the pools of shadows cast by flickering lights, its head tilting unnaturally, like a puppet waiting for a string to pull it back in motion. His breath fogs in the chilled air, a cold that doesn't belong here, and as he steps back, his shoes squeaking faintly on the lino floor, the sound makes the figure pause, its head cocking slightly. He freezes, heart pounding, as a thin tendril, see-through, almost translucent, slips from the sleeve of the uniform, writhing as though tasting the air. It curls towards him, inching closer, impossibly silent. Beyond him, the hospital seems to shift in response. The doors to patient rooms begin to close, one by one, the soft groans of hinges reverberating like a warning. The walls feel nearer, as if the corridor itself is narrowing, boxing him in. His pulse thunders in his ears, and he feels the oppressive sense of being seen, even though the thing's eyes, if it even has them, never lift to meet his. The sketches crumple further in his fists, his only shield against the strange, awful thing. On paper are crude, frantic lines, figures with warped faces and reaching tendrils. He doesn't need to look down to know that the thing in the nurse's uniform is drawn here. Now, as it drifts closer, he wonders, was it waiting for him all of this time? Thomas takes a step back, and the cold deepens. He can't scream, can't cry out. He knows no one would believe him, even if he did. No one else can see it. No one else hears the faint, wet sounds of its tendrils dragging against the floor as it inches nearer, and the creature moves without suspicion. Today, I've brought you something truly unsettling that dates back a good few 20 years. When this young boy, he's now a grown man of course, first encountered what we classify as a dream vampire. Well, I've classified it as a dream vampire, but this is the only account we have, so it's very fascinating. You see, this witness, now an adult as I said, reached out to us here at the archives after finding our channel. He wanted to share his account, and I think you'll agree this case is worth every chilling word. Now, as I said, the archives this week have been difficult. You'd be surprised at how reckless old records can become, especially as autumn sets in, and the darkening nights. So hard to see where you're going sometimes around here. We had a case file shuffle itself entirely out of order in the multi-dimensional disturbances wing. Absolutely maddening when you're trying to maintain a system. Oh, and the Exorcist team had a rather dramatic encounter in Whitechapel, but I'll save that for another time. For now, let's focus on St. Mary's Hospital and this particular child named Thomas. Okay, so you're in St. Mary's Hospital. It looms or stands in part of London known for its mist-laden alleyways and thick fog that rolls in from the Thames. It's one of those institutions that's been standing for centuries, modernised only enough to function, but with old-world architecture that holds 1,000 stories within its walls. By day, it's a place of bustling activity where life and death dances in sterile rooms filled with the smell of antiseptics and the soft hum of medical machines. But at night, when the halls grow silent and the patients settle into uneasy sleeps, the building takes on an entirely different character. The lights dim to an almost sepia tone, and every footfall echoes as if something or someone is listening. Thomas at this time was only 7 or 8, maybe 9, 10, who knows. A boy with solemn eyes and a habit of keeping to himself. His father was the caretaker of the night shift in the coma ward. He was a quiet, hard-working man whose presence was as much of the hospital's nocturnal rhythm as the soft beeps and whirs of the equipment. His mother was long gone, and so Thomas often accompanied his father on these night shifts, spending the nights drawing in corners or wandering the quiet halls. It was during one of these night shifts that Thomas first noticed it, a nurse who moved through the dim corridors in a manner unlike anything he'd seen before. His or her form seemed almost indistinct at the edges, as if the entire being was blurred like a smudge on a lens. And there was a strange grace in the movements, a glide rather than a walk, a strange creeping chill that followed it wherever it went. The staff, though they wouldn't admit it, had begun to avoid the rooms this nurse entered. There was a vague unease surrounding it, a compulsion to look away whenever it approached. It wasn't conscious, but it lingered, a subtle influence that pushed people to veer off course or even take another hallway, another task. No one could pinpoint the source of the discomfort, but the effect was undeniable. This unease was the work of the creature's pheromonal aura, a chemical fog that dulled human senses and perception, ensuring its disguise remained intact. It worked on everyone except Thomas. The boy, untouched by puberty, was immune to the pheromones' subtle manipulation, while others saw it as a serene, if distant nurse. Excuse me, 1 second. Is everything okay? Okay, stop podcasting. Right. Yeah. Sorry. I'm back again. We had a small incursion. Everything's fine now. Let me just. What day is it today? Oh gosh. A whole day has gone by. It only felt like a few minutes. I need to make a few phone calls. I'll be just back. Hello there, Felix back again, and today we are continuing on with the story of the dream vampire. Where was I? Something about the nurse entered. No one could compete. Oh yes. So these dream vampires, they have a pheromonal aura. It's like a chemical fog that dulls human senses. And because Thomas at the time, who was prepubescent, the pheromones didn't actually distort the way he saw reality around this creature, and so that's why he could see it for what it was. Anyway, let me find my notes again. Ah, excellent, yes. Thomas saw the truth. He saw the edges shimmer and blur, its movements alien, and the faint tendrils that slipped out from under its sleeves, translucent, probing, drifting. This wasn't human. It wasn't anything close to human. Thomas said that each night the creature would go into the coma wards, lift up its tendril and place it on the forehead of a sleeping patient, and then a few moments later leave the room and vanish back into the shadows as if it never was ever there at all. But as the days went on and this creature kept going in and drawing out the dreams of these sleeping patients, their eyes, their cheeks, their entire bodies seemed to grow thin and pale, as if the creature was pulling out the very essence of them within their dreams. And this kept happening night over night until Thomas recounted one particular evening when a particular nurse, let's call her Nurse Grace, was helping a porter lift a patient onto a bed when the creature, who obviously at this point appeared to them as another nurse, appeared at the edge of the corridor. Grace's nurse froze in mid-motion, her tight gripping. The porter followed her gaze, his expression shifting to a blank, almost slack-jawed state. Then, without a word, he lunged at the figure. The figure tilted its head in an almost curious way, its edges shimmering like a reflection in the rippling water. But before anyone could react, the portal crumpled to the floor in a deep, unnatural sleep, his breath shallow but steady. Nurse Grace screamed, her knees giving out as she fainted on the spot. Thomas, watching from the shadows, knew the truth. The creature's glamour wasn't holding, at least not entirely. The flickering, fractured image of a human form dissolved for a moment, revealing the shimmering, translucent figure beneath. A being of delicate tentacles, like veins of liquid light, moving as though swayed by some unseen current. Its dark, glassy eyes turned towards the boy, though it still didn't realize he could see it. And then something new happened. The air around the creature shimmered, and a doorway seemed to materialize behind it, swallowing the outline of an existing hospital door. It was like looking through a sheet of water, the rippling edges revealing a deep blue void beyond. A churning expanse of liquid light and shadow, swishing as if alive. The creature moved backward, its tendrils pulling close to its body as it retreated into the watery portal. Thomas couldn't stop himself. He ran towards it, sketches fluttering from the grasp. As he neared, the figure was already dissolving into the blue expanse. The doorway shrinking with every passing second, but for a brief, haunting moment, he saw it clearly, an endless oceanic void, as though the depths of some ancient sea were compressed into this otherworldly gateway. It shimmered with ethereal light and a natural, hypnotic beauty. But just as quickly as it appeared, the doorway collapsed in on itself with a faint sucking sound, leaving nothing behind but a puddle of water that shimmered unnaturally under the dim hospital lights. The puddle didn't ripple, didn't spread, it just simply sat there, unnerving still, before evaporating entirely. Thomas stumbled back, his breath ragged, his mind spinning. No one else had seen the portal, the void. The creature's retreat. To them, it was just another bizarre incident in a string of strange, unspoken moments. But Thomas knew better. The creature had escaped this time, and the hospital felt emptier without it. An unnatural quiet hung in the air, as though something vital and terrible had left, but not for good. It would return. Thomas was certain of it. In the weeks that followed, the hospital tried to shake off the incident. Alistair remained in his coma, his face a strange mixture of serenity and dread, Alistair being the porter. The coma patients did eventually recover, although it took longer than they had expected. Years passed, and Thomas grew up, carrying that night with him in his memory like a scar. He never forgot the creature, the dream vampire, as we have later decided to call it, and when he came across our channel, he reached out to us. We sent an operative down to meet him, recorded his story, and then the operative brought it to me here in the archives, and now I can finally share this account with you. Now, we must keep his account carefully catalogued under Class 3 Residual Dream Manifestation, though I'm not entirely sure it's gone for good. While the creature doesn't display the immediate aggression or violence typical of a Class 6 malevolent energy, its ability to deeply affect the psyche and leave its victims vulnerable, even comatose, hints at a more insidious and persistent danger. However, given that the dream's vampire escape was clean and its whereabouts remains unknown, it is fair to conclude that its lingering presence, be it psychological, environmental, or spiritual, warrants ongoing vigilance. Creatures like this have a way of lingering, don't they? A way of slipping back when we least expect it. I can't help but wonder if its origins might lie somewhere more alien to us. The fluidity of its form, the translucent tendrils, and its strange reaction to human warmth. It almost reminds me one of deep sea life, the kind that thrives in lightless trenches where our understanding barely scratches the surface. Was it some hyper-evolved squid? A sentient being that slipped through dimensions? Or could it be a predator from an entirely different realm? One whose natural habitat mirrors the abyss of our oceans? Whatever it was, it carried a sense of intelligence and purpose, as if it had wandered too far from its alien home, or worse, as if it was scouting. Perhaps its retreat was only temporary, and someday it may find a way to return, bringing with it the cold, dark hunger of whatever realm spawned it. That's all we have today, dear listeners. Keep safe and keep your dreams guarded.